31 Weird Things About the History Behind the Marriage of Queen Elizabeth II. The death of Prince Philip in 2021 and of his wife Elizabeth II in 2022 brought an earthly end to the longest reigns experienced by both a monarch and a consort in the millennia-long history of the British monarchy. But it also brought an end to one of the most talked-about love affairs and marriages of the 20th century. Just out of adolescence, the future Elizabeth II decided that the man of her life was a handsome Greek prince without a kingdom to reign over, a destroyed family, and almost no money. With that resume, no one in Great Britain was betting a penny on seeing the Greek intruder married to the heir to the throne of the United Kingdom. But love prevailed, and Elizabeth and Philip had the longest-lasting marriage in the annals of Western royalty. Let's dedicate this video to the possible oddities, infidelities, and most striking curiosities of the marriage between the iconic Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip of Edinburgh, one of the longest and most celebrated unions in history. Before we delve deeper, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date with our updates. Number 1. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip were a very resilient couple. They formed a lasting elderly partnership. Prince Philip died in 2021, just 62 days short of his 100th birthday, while the Queen died on September 8, 2022, at the age of 96 years and 140 days. They were both great-great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria. Edward VII was the eldest son of the famous Queen who gave her name to the Victorian era. Edward VII's second son reigned as George VI and was the father of Elizabeth II. The second daughter of Queen Victoria was Alice, mother of Princess Victoria of Hesse, who had Princess Alice of Battenberg, mother of Philip. They were also cousins through the Danish king Christian IX. Number 2. They met as children at a family wedding. Princess Elizabeth, future Queen Elizabeth II, met her future husband when she was 8 years old and he was 13 at the wedding of Marina of Greece and Prince George, Duke of Kent. The wedding took place on November 29, 1934, at Westminster Abbey and was the last time a member of the British royal family married a foreign princess. Since then, marriages of the British princes have been with women belonging to the English, Scottish, and German aristocracy, or with commoners, such as Kate Middleton, wife of the Prince of Wales, and Meghan Markle, married to Prince Harry. Number 3. Philip and his parents had a very tough time in Paris. Philip was born on the Greek island of Corfu on June 10, 1921, as the fifth child and first son of the marriage of Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark and Princess Alice of Battenberg. The boy only spent a year in Greece before his family was expelled following a coup d'état, which forced them to move to Paris, where they occupied a wealthy relative's house rent-free. Philip's mother had difficulty managing the large family on her own because she was deaf from birth. Number 4. Philip came from a broken family. At the age of 8, Philip was sent by his parents to a boarding school in England. Later, his mother suffered a nervous breakdown and was institutionalized for several years, which led to Philip's parents' permanent separation. After his mother recovered, she went to Athens and founded a convent of Orthodox nuns. Prince Andreas of Greece was not very aware of his son's life, as he was living with a lover in Monte Carlo while Philip paid for his English boarding school with the generosity of relatives and friends. Number 5. Philip became a 6-foot-tall Adonis in the UK. Philip was under the protection of his maternal uncle, Louis Mountbatten, and his grandmother, the Marchioness of Milford Haven, who arranged for him to have a gracious apartment at Kensington Palace. He became a 6-foot-tall Adonis with intense blue eyes, blonde hair, chiseled features, athleticism, and a touch of impudence. He was enterprising, energetic, and resourceful, but also somewhat lonely and defensively aloof, attributed to his difficult childhood. His cousin, Patricia Mountbatten, said that Prince Philip is a much more sensitive person than you'd ever realize. He had a difficult childhood, and his life was such that he had to be tough to survive. Number 6. Initially, Philip did not pay attention to Elizabeth. after the first meeting in 1934. The next encounter between Philip and Princess Elizabeth was in 1937 during the coronation of George VI. They had to wait 2 more years until 1939 for the 13-year-old princess to spend more time with her handsome 18-year-old cousin. Through the intervention of his uncle, Vicky Mountbatten, Philip obtained an invitation to have lunch and tea with the royal family, and Marion Crawford, Elizabeth's governess, said that her pupil never took her eyes off the visitor, although he did not pay her any special attention. Number 7. Philip was the only man that caught the attention of Queen Elizabeth II in their early encounters, as she was barely at the height of adolescence, while the young man already pretended to have a certain air of a worldly man. While almost everything in Elizabeth's life was predetermined, it was she who made the fundamental choice in her life. Her cousin Margaret Rhodes would say, she never looked at anyone else. During the war, Philip saw Elizabeth little, but they remained in contact by letter, as the young Royal Navy officer served in the Pacific and Mediterranean. Number 8. The first signs of romance were perceived in 1943. Friends and family received the first flutterings of romance between Elizabeth and Philip in December 1943, during the Christmas holidays at Windsor Castle when the princess was 17 years old. Philip did not make a bad impression on King George VI, who commented on the young man, "He's intelligent, has a good sense of humor, and thinks about things in the right way." In December 1944, while Philip was at sea, his father, Prince Andrew of Greece, died of a heart attack in the Monte Carlo hotel where he lived, leaving as his only inheritance a few trunks of clothes, some cufflinks, and an ivory-handled shaving brush. He also left a signet ring that Philip kept and used for the rest of his life. Number 9. Princess Elizabeth accepted Philip's proposal of marriage without consulting her father. After the war ended, Philip returned to London in 1946 and settled at his uncle Dickie's house, where the butler worked wonders with his worn-out clothes to keep him reasonably well dressed. He often visited Buckingham Palace, where he played and chatted with Elizabeth and her sister Margaret under the watchful eye of the governess, who was captivated by the informal charm of the young man in shirt-sleeves, so different from the stuffy regulars of the court. During a stay at Balmoral in the summer of 1946, Philip proposed to Elizabeth, and the princess accepted on the spot without consulting her father. Number 10. Their engagement was kept secret for a while. Philip was the grandson of King George I of Greece and Grand Duchess Olga Romanova, granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia. When he formally asked for Princess Elizabeth's hand in 1946, King George VI requested that the announcement be delayed until 1947. It was said that the king and queen were concerned about Elizabeth's age, as she was only 20 in 1946, but many princesses before and after her have married at a younger age. What really worried George VI was establishing such a close relative of the British royal family with a lineage that had fallen into decline due to the turmoil of the Greek royal house. In addition, the Bolshevik Revolution swept away the Russian monarchy. In the end, the engagement of Philip and Elizabeth was announced in June 1947, and the wedding was set for November of the same year. Number 11. The marriage was for love. Traditionally, members of royalty have married each other, often being relatives and not necessarily in love. In the past, this had its explanation in the need to forge military alliances between kingdoms that were almost constantly at war. However, the marriage between Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark was for love, and George VI's own reservations about giving his consent to the marriage are evidence of this. George VI had also married very much in love with Lady Elizabeth Lyon, the future Queen Mother, an aristocrat whom he had to ask 3 times for her hand in marriage because she was not attracted to the rigid life of royalty. At the wedding breakfast, George VI said, "Our daughter is marrying the man she loves." On the same occasion, Princess Elizabeth said, "I ask nothing more than that, Philip, and I should be as happy as my father and mother have been." Number 12. The marriage caused controversy. Although of royal blood, Philip was a foreigner and lacked financial means. Furthermore, his sisters had married German nobles with ties to Nazi Germany. Marion Crawford, the princess governess, wrote that some of the king's advisors did not think he was good enough for her. He was a prince without a home or a kingdom. Elizabeth's mother was initially completely opposed to the relationship, although she later said that Philip was an English gentleman. Number 13. Philip had to make a series of concessions in order to marry Princess Elizabeth. He had to renounce his Greek citizenship and his royal titles of Greece and Denmark, as well as his membership in the Orthodox Church, to convert to the Anglican Church, whose highest leader is the monarch of the United Kingdom. The groom arrived at the altar with the secular name of Philip Mountbatten after adopting the surname of his mother's British family just before the wedding. He was also appointed Duke of Edinburgh and granted other titles by the British King. Number 14. The wedding was celebrated for both the guests and the absentees. The wedding took place on November 20, 1947, at Westminster Abbey. In 1947, the United Kingdom was still suffering from the food and clothing rationing instituted during the war, and the government had to provide additional coupons for Princess Elizabeth to purchase materials for her wedding dress. The wedding had 2,000 guests but did not include Edward, the ex-king and uncle of the bride who had caused the biggest state crisis in the history of the United Kingdom in 1936 by deciding to marry the divorced and foreigner Wallis Simpson, which led to his abdication. Princess Mary, sister of George VI and mother of the bride, was invited but did not attend due to health problems, although it was said that this was a protest against her brother's veto. It was also considered inappropriate to invite the groom's sisters with their husbands, who had been supporters of Hitler. Number 15. The bride's dress was decorated with 10,000 American pearls. Elizabeth's wedding dress was designed by Norman Hartnell, a couturier by royal appointment of the Queen Mother and later of Queen Elizabeth II. The ivory satin piece was decorated with embroidered tulle and silver thread and 10,000 imported white pearls from America. The United Kingdom may still have been in serious trouble from the recent war, but the calamities never deprived the royalty of their lavish celebrations, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill described the festivities as a splash of colour on the hard road we have to travel. Number 16. The ceremony was officiated by 2 archbishops, and the bride's bouquet was made of white orchids and myrtle cut from a bush planted by Queen Victoria, Elizabeth's great-great-grandmother. After the wedding, the bouquet was offered at the tomb of the unknown soldier, just as the Queen Mother had done in 1923. The celebration feast took place at Buckingham Palace. The couple received around 2,500 gifts, including about 140 pairs of nylon stockings, an item that was scarce in London in 1947, and which many British women gave up to gift to Princess Elizabeth. Number 17. Princess Elizabeth handled cash for the first time after her marriage. Elizabeth's motherhood ended a long streak of 186 years in the British monarchy without a male heir being born as the first child. Her son, Charles, was born on November 14, 1948. And was the first male heir to a reigning monarch since George IV in 1762. During the first years of marriage, before Princess Elizabeth became queen, the couple led a completely routine life between the UK and the island of Malta, where the Duke of Edinburgh was stationed as a Royal Navy officer. Number 18. Princess Elizabeth breastfed her son Charles for almost 2 months. The new mother breastfed her firstborn for almost 2 months until she contracted measles, an illness she had not caught during childhood, unlike most of her classmates, because her parents shared their palace school. The baby was temporarily moved away to prevent infection. Shortly after, the Duke of Edinburgh was named second in command of the destroyer HMS Chequers, based in Malta, and the couple left for the Mediterranean island, leaving their son in London. Although Elizabeth occasionally travelled to England, in 1950, the couple's second child, Princess Anne, was born. Number 19. Elizabeth became Queen of Kenya. George VI was a heavy smoker and was diagnosed with lung cancer in September 1951, which was complicated by an arterial obstruction. He passed away on February 6, 1952. At that time, Elizabeth and Philip were on an official tour in Kenya and hurried back to England, with the princess now Queen Elizabeth II. Elizabeth had taken Philip's surname, Mountbatten, when she married, and many people thought she would use it to reign. Number 20. Philip was upset with his wife's ascension to the throne. Queen Mary, mother of George VI, and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill disagreed with the House of Windsor being renamed the House of Mountbatten, and Elizabeth adopted the surname with which her father and other previous monarchs of the family had reigned. The Duke of Edinburgh was upset and said, "I am the only man in the country not allowed to give his name to his own children." Number 21. Elizabeth II's coronation boosted television popularity. Elizabeth II's coronation as sovereign of the United Kingdom took place at Westminster Abbey on June 2, 1953. Although Queen Mary had passed away 10 weeks earlier and had requested that the ceremony not be suspended if she did, it was the first time a coronation ceremony had been broadcast on television. The fact that the British could see images of something that had been reserved for centuries for only a few privileged attendees greatly boosted the popularity of the novel medium of communication. Number 22. Britons with television had never had to receive so many visitors. Television penetration was still low in the United Kingdom in 1953, and the number of television sets doubled to 3 million when it was announced that the coronation would be televised. Nevertheless, more than 20 million Britons who did not have a television watched the event at the homes of relatives, friends, or simply neighbours who had the miraculous device in their living room. In the United States and Canada, almost 100 million people watched the broadcasts. Number 23. Elizabeth II appointed Philip Prince of the United Kingdom in 1957. 5 years after ascending the throne, Elizabeth II granted Philip the title of Prince by royal patent. The Queen bestowed upon her husband the style and titular dignity of a Prince of the United Kingdom, expressing her will and pleasure that he should thenceforth be known as His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Andrew and Edward, the couple's 2 sons, were born in 1959 and 1963, respectively. Number 24. They lived through their horrible year in 1992. The year 1992 was a disastrous one for the British royal couple. In March, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, separated from his wife, Sarah Ferguson. A month later, their daughter, Princess Anne, divorced Captain Mark Phillips, whom she had married 19 years earlier. In October, during a state visit to Germany, angry protesters in the city of Dresden pelted them with eggs, in retaliation for the city's destruction by British and American air forces in February 1945, more as revenge against the Germans than out of wartime necessity. In November 1992, a fire devastated part of Windsor Castle. All of these incidents led the Queen to describe 1992 as her annus horribilis. Number 25. They advised their son Charles and Princess Diana to divorce in the early 1990s. The marriage of the Prince of Wales and heir to the British throne with Diana, Princess of Wales, was completely destroyed. Things continued to worsen, and Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip decided to advise their son Charles and Princess Diana to divorce. In December 1995, Elizabeth II wrote to both of them, indicating that divorce was the most desirable option. When Diana died tragically in 1997, Elizabeth II and Prince Philip kept their grandchildren, Prince William, and Harry, well protected from media pressures. Number 26. They slept in separate rooms. Royal biographer Giles Brandreth, who had privileged access to the Queen and Prince Philip for his job, said the couple was very supportive of the Stoic values of their generation, avoiding public displays of affection. Similarly, Queen Elizabeth and her husband had separate rooms, something that is not uncommon in England among those with enough space to afford such a luxury. You don't want to be disturbed by snoring or someone moving a leg. It's nice to be able to choose. Number 27. An intruder made it to the Queen's bedroom in 1982. As unlikely as it may seem, in the early hours of July 9, 1982, a man named Michael Fagan eluded electronic surveillance and police at Buckingham Palace and the Royal Guard to reach the Queen's bedroom. A jobless man with 4 children and psychiatric problems sat on the Queen's bed and chatted with her for 10 minutes until a maid appeared, who almost fainted but managed to sound the alarm. Throughout the incident, Elizabeth II remained calm, and her famous phrase, full of distinction and English phlegm, "I think you've got the wrong room, sir," came from her conversation with the intruder. Number 28. Prince Philip was unfaithful to Queen Elizabeth II for most of his life. The Duke of Edinburgh had a womanizing streak that he could never shake, not even with the ingenious lifelines thrown to him from Buckingham Palace. As when Dickie Arbiter, a former press secretary at Buckingham Palace, said, "He has always liked to look in shop windows but never buy." Have you ever stopped to think that for years now, I haven't gone anywhere without a policeman accompanying me? How the hell could I get away with anything like that? The prince once said. Number 29. Prince Philip was romantically linked to Daphne du Maurier and Pat Kirkwood. The list of alleged mistresses attributed to the Duke of Edinburgh is long, with no solid evidence of any infidelity. Shortly before marrying, Philip had a close relationship with the writer Daphne du Maurier, which may have changed the course of the British monarchy, although it is claimed that there was nothing sexual. He is also attributed to an affair with the actress and dancer Pat Kirkwood, supposedly carried on while Princess Elizabeth was pregnant with the current King Charles III, although the artist always denied it. Number 30. Her longevity was legendary. In 2007, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip celebrated 60 years of marriage, becoming the first British royal couple to mark a diamond wedding anniversary. In 2017, they went even further, reaching 70 years of marriage, and becoming the first to celebrate a platinum wedding anniversary. The Duke of Edinburgh said that the secret to their long marriage was his ability to make his wife laugh. In 2009, Prince Philip became the longest-serving consort in British history, surpassing Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, who married George III in 1761 and died 57 years later in 1818. The Duke of Edinburgh continued to expand his record year after year until he died in 2021. Number 31. Queen Elizabeth II never intended to abdicate. 7 months before her death, she celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years on the throne. Despite her advanced age, the Queen never considered abdicating. While Prince Charles gradually took over some of her duties, her last official engagement took place 2 days before she died when she received the newly elected leader of the Conservative Party at Buckingham Palace. Prince Charles then began a new era from Downing Street, almost simultaneously, marking a very different chapter for the United Kingdom without Queen Elizabeth II. Her death, 17 months after that of her husband, Prince Philip, closed one of the most iconic stories of recent times. It is unlikely that any monarchy in the world will be able to repeat this unique and irreplaceable experience. We hope you found this video useful. If you have anything to add, please share it with us in the comments section. Like this video and send the link to your family and friends so they can learn more about the weird things in history behind Queen Elizabeth II's marriage. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe.